Hello and welcome to a conversation on the Daily Burn. I'm your host, Eric Miller. Today I'm joined by an awesome progressive returning. She's running for a state Senate seat in the state of Pennsylvania, Michelle Siegel. How you doing, Michelle?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for coming back and talking to me. We talked maybe 2 months ago or so at this point. The
Yes.
seat you're running for is PA Senate 27, and you've been doing a lot of obviously campaigning. There's a Dump Trump event in Harrisburg this coming Saturday. I don't know if you'll be out at that, but you formalized your rural Bill of Rights, and I think it's just spectacular. I wish this was a national thing, and I want to pull that up and allow you the opportunity to step through that because I think it's really something special and inspiring. But just can you give me a little bit of a pulse check? Like, how's the race going?
It's going well. This is a very grassroots campaign. We're doing stuff a little bit differently. We're trying to unseat a incumbent GOP leadership, and I don't think you can run a normal campaign, right? I think it has to be done a little bit differently. So that's what we're doing. And the Bill of Rights kind of feeds into that because it's a way for us to articulate the issues that are going on with Commonwealth, with rural people, and specifically to address things that aren't being taken care of by my opponent and by the legislature in general in Harrisburg. So,
Right on. The incumbent is John Gordner, and he's been there for like 17 years. So when you say, he's in GOP leadership and you said about running differently, like what do you mean by that?
I mean, I think it's just taking a younger approach to campaigning, right? Like, not the same old stereotype ways to campaigning. I think honestly, people are a little sick of the same old. Like I'm not sure sending somebody a mailer anymore is efficient to persuade, right? I think there's different things you have to do in this type of area. I think people in rural are sick of politics in general. So
Right.
it's like you want to find a unique way to talk to people and stuff so it doesn't feel so political, because I don't think people like politicians in general, and I
Yeah.
understand that. And
Yeah.
it's trying to like just point out, like, I'm trying to do this differently, right? I'm trying to elevate your needs and stuff, and also call out the lack of support and bills that would elevate and help the middle class, would help working families, would help our small businesses. That's
Right.
not being done. And it's hard when you're running in a really red area, because initially people are like, oh, well, you're a Democrat, I don't want to hear it. And so I have to work to break down that stereotype, right, of what people think that I am.
Right.
And show even too, like, I am a little bit more independent minded on a lot of issues than even what the stereotype is, right? So that's what I mean. It's coming to these ideas and pushing out a narrative and to say, look, this is a young woman who loves her community so much that she's willing to put her life on the line for them. And that's what I'm doing here, right? Like, nobody has challenged him since he originally ran in 2003. It's just, I mean, literally when I went on the radio the one time, one of his buddies said to me, why are you doing this? And it was almost like how dare you challenge a GOP leadership incumbent? And I just was like, because this is a democracy and people deserve choice. And just because, what my concern is with that statement is, are we really going to get to the point in society and in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania where your district is red, so nobody on the other side should run because only an R can win? And I think that's a really scary place to start going in a democracy, in a representative government. Like, that is concerning to me. And that's why I'm doing this. And that's why I'm fighting, because I think people need to hear a counter argument. People need to hear a different perspective. People need to hear that somebody is born and raised here, gets it, right? I am a Snyder County girl. It is a very rural area. I mean, I grew up playing in the woods. And the thing is, I come from the perspective that this campaign is about unity. I'm not here to make you feel bad about how you voted in the past. I'm not here to make you feel bad about who you're voting for president. My job is to help my community at the state level. And I think that's the most fast and efficient way to get some change done for a lot of people in Pennsylvania is in the state legislature.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's funny that you say that too, because there are a lot of red districts that get abandoned by the party because, like you just outlaid so perfectly, there's the No Dems Left Behind organization now that is like Richard Ojeda, Blair Walsingham. There are candidates in deeply red areas that, since the party isn't necessarily backing and barely people even run, those times are past. There's more efforts to put that behind us, and candidates like you running, like you say, there aren't Democrats that it's not like there are Democrats that don't care about their communities, right? They just haven't been, they don't have sort of, they're not buoyed by the party in a traditional sense. So, I love that you pointed that out, and, that's happening all across the country, and, hopefully more and more so with each cycle, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Basically. Yeah. So again, it's PA Senate seat 27. Yeah, let me pull up I complimented you on your website last time because you do something on your website which I think is like one of the coolest things, and I've pointed it out to other candidates because I think it's super helpful. So it's Michelle Siegel for PASenate.com, right? But you have a thing on here, issues, bills to watch, and I'm gonna let you go through your Bill of Rights in a moment. But I think this is the greatest thing. Every candidate should have this. These are the bills that you support in the PA legislature, and these are the ones that you do not support. And you've gone through and read every one of these bills that are currently on the floor or in the process in some stage and said yay or nay, right? This is your commitment. You know what you're getting here, right? And again, we covered this on the previous interview, but, you don't take corporate PAC money, or, you're progressive. You sort of check all the litmus tests, in terms of Medicare for All, Green New Deal, et cetera, right? And you're not going to get in and then start taking money from Raytheon, et cetera, right? So, you're getting exactly what you vote for. And Michelle has outlined it on her website, which God, imagine every candidate did that. I think that's just the coolest thing I've seen this whole cycle. So kudos on you and your team for putting that out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's look at the Rural Bill of Rights. And, again, I'm going to just hand it off to you basically, and I'll be sort of a PowerPoint clicker here, if you will. There are 10 items on your Rural Bill of Rights. You rolled this out maybe about a month ago.
Yep.
I just think it's awesome. And, obviously you're running for PA 27, but, there's no reason that this couldn't be applicable to any district, any rural district, anywhere around the country. So if anyone else is watching this, maybe consider this as a template or use this as inspiration, because, Michelle's got something really special here. So I will hand it off to you. Let's go with number one.
Yeah, thanks. Just on a side note, we welcome people to take up this platform. We have candidates in other Rust Belt states that are using it, and some people in the Commonwealth in Pennsylvania are using it. So please use it. It is a great way to talk and to have a unifying message and reach across the aisle with a lot of people. So it kind of came out of a way. My team, we were sitting in a meeting one time and we're like, people, you get these reporters and stuff asking you, what is your platform? What is your platform? What is your platform? And there's so many issues that are so important to me that need tackled from rural people. And it just got to be like, so like, how do I go through this and not forget anything? And so there's a little bit of a selfish reason for this, but this was a way for us to articulate our platform in a way that I think people understand. It points out the fact that government isn't doing this. In the whole deal, that these are rights that aren't being upheld, and it gives you a chance to do research and find out like what has your opponent voted on and not voted on that would uphold or not uphold this right. So it actually helps focus your your target and your messaging. So again, as you said, please, anybody watching or listening, go ahead, have at it, take it. So the first one is access to hospitals and healthcare. So the things is the top of the Rural Bill of Rights says we the rural people deserve, and it's 10 things. So the first one is access to hospitals and healthcare. So it says we the rural people have watched our rural hospitals close with no replacement offered in our communities. We must invest in rural healthcare in our hospitals, ensuring they remain in our communities for decades to come. So on a really short note for me, why I'm for Medicare for all. It's very personal for me. And this is why this right is so important to me. I needed a surgery in my early 20s. My doctors said I needed it. My private insurance that was through my parents said, no, appealed, denied. And finally, the hospital that was performing the surgery, which was in Cleveland Clinic, said she needs to become an independent and go on Medicaid. So I had to file as an independent, get off my parents' private insurance. My parents were devastated. They were embarrassed. The employer of my dad's that it was through was frustrated. And I had to go on Medicaid. And the one thing that happened, though, when that time I was on Medicaid, everything was covered. My doctors didn't have to fight for 2 years about anything. And that's when at that age is when I realized Medicare for all was the best way forward. And then living in an area where rural hospitals are getting closed. We just had a big community hospital that's been in this area for 125 years close its door. We lost like 150 jobs, 63 hospital beds in a pandemic. And it wasn't because of the pandemic that's closed. They had it was a giant corporation in Pennsylvania, UPMC, bought this hospital in a deal with another hospital. It's my personal opinion that they never actually intended to leave it open. It was just a deal. They wanted to see what happened. And after 2 years, it wasn't profitable enough. So they closed the doors. Right. And the problem is in rural, you close a hospital, that adds a lot of time in an emergency. So at the minimum, closing this hospital is adding 20 minutes in emergency. So if you are in anaphylactic shock, you're having a heart problem, and you're in an emergent situation, this is trouble. And I think we need to start working better to make rural hospitals critical access points so that they can't be shut down, and give these institutions the funding and the resources they need so that they can remain in our areas, so that rural people aren't forced to keep driving, because that's what it feels like. We're being pushed to get special care further and further away. Yeah. And it's becoming problematic. So that's right, number one.
Yeah, and costly. And that, Medicare for all, takes out the profit motive. You mentioned Medicaid, right? So it's a single payer system. So there's no payment at the point of service, right? So, like you said, that the local hospital was closed because it was just a number on a spreadsheet, right?
Yep.
Medicare for all does not have that, right? And like you said, emergencies, delivering a baby, right? The other way, an ambulance being called, right? Medicare for all would sort of assuage any of those issues once the profit motive is gone, right? Awesome. So number two, I'm gonna be a PowerPoint operator for you.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. Okay, so number two is access to broadband and cell phone service. So this is we the rural people. No reliable broadband and cellular services are desperately needed in our communities. We know hardworking families and small businesses cannot succeed without these services. We must expand these services to all rural people of the Commonwealth. So broadband issues, it was one of the issues why I had logging on. Honestly, this is a problem in rural, okay? This is a serious issue that has not been addressed. It's something that rural people have complained about for a long time. COVID brought it to attention when everybody had to put their kids on, online homeschool during the shutdown, and a lot of people couldn't participate. I talked to a number of mothers that said, I didn't have broadband, my kids didn't do anything. Yeah. And that's unacceptable. That's directly affecting our children. Like that's what a lot of these rights is important to highlight. These were things that would build back the middle class. These are things that would invest in our communities and our future. And we owe our small businesses better. I was at a chamber event where a small business owner sat up there and said, if we don't fix broadband in this area, I don't think I can keep my business here. I'm not competitive. And with the telework and stuff that you have to do right now, it's even more of a burden if you don't have reliable high-speed broadband and cell phone services, and making sure they match speed levels, right? There should be a federal speed, making sure that that's implemented in the state, and making sure this stuff. I think it's important for people to understand that FDR expanded electricity into rural. There was no incentive to get that farmer electricity that was 20 miles out of the town, but he still deserves it. And we now today are facing the same problem, but this time it's broadband. Yeah. So, and again, this would help not just people, it would help businesses, it would help schools. It just, all of these things can branch out into other areas. We have almost 1 million people in Pennsylvania without access to reliable broadband and cell phone service. And about half of those are in rural. And it's just unacceptable to me. It's something that needs to change.
Yeah. And other countries do it. And, this is, you can also strike the patriotic nerve, right? Like, we're being left behind, particularly in rural areas. That's a critical need. I love it. Number 3.
Number 3 is access to public transportation. So we, the rural people, need public transportation. I can't talk. Public transportation. Rural communities are remote. We drive everywhere to get basic needs like food, healthcare, and education. Reliable public transportation would take a burden off of working families, our elderly, and those without automobiles. So what you're going to see here too, what's interesting is you can unite some of these together. Like access to public transportation. If we had a good, solid public transportation system, it wouldn't be such a burden if a hospital was a little bit farther, right? If you could get on a bus, if you could get on a train like you can in a city and get there, and you wouldn't have to worry about drive, that would help some. I'm not saying that we should not invest in our hospitals, but it would take a little bit of the stress out. It would create blue collar jobs. We could bring good union, jobs in if we invest in this. And we used to have a person public transportation train system around this area, and we don't have it anymore. And it would help our elderly. It would help those in this area that it might not be of their best interest to drive all the time, but they still need to get places. They need to get to the doctor. They need to get to the grocery store. Public transportation would save people money. Pennsylvania has the highest gas tax in the United States. So driving our cars in rural is a fortune. So if you have public transportation, it takes a little bit of that stress off. It takes a little bit of that financial burden off that you have to pay every time you fill your car up. Yeah. And again, this one, it seems like such a small thing, but this is something that rural does not have, and it needs again, job creator, investment in your community, help our senior citizens. It's a win-win.
Yeah, and better for the environment, right?
Yes, exactly.
The sustainability component to that too. So number 4.
So investment in public education. We, the rural people, deserve investment in public education. We want to know that our hard-earned property tax dollars are being dedicated to educating our children so that we foster a stronger middle class in our communities. All children deserve a quality education. So this one, as a mother of a 9-year-old, this is extremely important to me. Pennsylvania ranks 46th in public education funding from the state. That is not good. We're not funding our public education enough. And this one just, for me, is you can't expect our school districts, you can't expect our teachers to do their job if they don't have the funding and the tools necessary to do that job successfully. Right. Investment in public education, and in that is also higher education and pre-K. I am a firm believer that Pennsylvania needs a pre-K system. It would help single mothers. It would help working families. It would be an investment in our children for their future. And if you educate children, they're better in society. They're going to build back into the tax base. They're going to get good jobs. It's going to help your community. It's such a, sounds like such a little generic thing, but I think investing in children is the one way you can fix a lot of the issues going on, because it will build back the middle class. It will, you have a good work base coming up. More businesses are going to come into the area. It's giving these kids the tools, giving them the opportunity to go into the trades and apprenticeships and community colleges and And investing in local education is, I don't know a single person, people complain about property tax in Pennsylvania. But when you actually talk about it, it's not that the person's upset that they're paying that. They understand we need to educate our children. We need to invest in our neighbors, in our children, our friends' children. It's just that they get frustrated because they know that money isn't going where it's supposed to all the time. And that's the issue. We just want to make sure that our tax dollars, our property tax dollars are getting there, and the state is upholding its job and also matching that funding so we can invest in our schools.
Right on. And public education versus charter schools, right? So I don't know if you have that fight there as a frontline issue, but school choice and charter schools, and Betsy DeVos siphoning off public education funds for private. That's why you explicitly, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but you're specifically talking about public education.
Yeah. So that's something that's going on in Pennsylvania. A lot of the doctor dollars for our public institutions or public education or schools is getting funneled into for-profit charters. Right. And that's problematic because they don't have to take every child. Like, the reason we want public education is because public education, they can't deny a child access to that school. Right. There's nothing in that in for-profit charters that says they have to do that, but yet they're getting taxpayer money. That's not effective. That's not fair. That if you're going to provide education, provide it for everyone. Like, if a lot of these districts, again, this is a transportation issue in rural. If you want to send your child to a for-profit charter, and the public school district has to pay the busing fee to get that child to the for-profit charter, and that could be miles away. So you're directly taking money out of the public school district. That could be a textbook, that could be books in the library, that could be a computer. Like, right. We need to do better to make sure the money that our tax dollars we were told was going to go to public education get to public education, and not these little sneaky things that they're doing when they're saying, well, that's education, but it's a for-profit charter. And I think that John Oliver had done one time a really great segment on what actually happens with the money. They end up lasting 6 months and they shut down, and it's a tough thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And these things you're talking about, the intersectionality of these things also, fix sort of diseases of despair and will have a direct impact on crime, right? Going down, right? If you invest in your society, crime rate drops, right? So, rather than, like you say, funneling money out of public education for profit charter school, if you actually apply it to, uniformly to anyone in that district, it sort of elevates everybody, right? And that, has a deleterious effect on the crime rate. It makes it better, right? There's fewer crimes. Yep. So please continue. Number 5.
So protection and growth of family farms. We, the rural people, deserve to have our farms protected. Too many farms owned by families for generations are facing financial crisis and eminent domain. We have a proud agricultural tradition in Pennsylvania and some of the best topsoil in the world. We must protect and nurture these farms for future generations. So farming is an interesting issue because when you're a rural, a party across the aisle loves to pay lip service to farmers, and in my mind, that's all they do, and they're not actually doing anything to solve these problems. Like, if you want to get into the big thing, they've deregulated the dairy industry so bad. That's why we're left with the mess that we're left with now, right? Like, the government used to regulate how much dairy was on the market, pay the farmers if there was too much, so there was a different system in place, and we don't have that anymore. And now dairy farmers in Pennsylvania are one of the highest suicide rates. It's unacceptable. There's some things that the government should do. There's some things the government shouldn't do. And helping in these type of situations, that's what government should do, right? We should be investing in our farmers, helping them diversify so they can stay viable on the market, help them through these issues in Pennsylvania. You have the fracking industry running lines through and claiming eminent domain. I talked to a farmer right in Shamokin Dam, which is really close to me and right in my backyard when I was growing up. He said, they put a line through my land. I asked them very nicely, when you construct and put this line through, please take that topsoil, set it aside so that when you're done, I can spread it over. Because if you mix the topsoils, it will mess them up. This is A1 top ranked. It is the best in the world right here in central Pennsylvania. But if you mix it, you can never grow again, and it's gone. Yeah. And he pointed out to his field, and there were spots where nothing was growing. He said, they didn't listen to me, and now you can never grow again, which is going to be food shortages. And again, if you invested in farms, what I would like to see is partnerships between farmers and school districts. So we had fresh farm to table. Studies have shown, in some districts across the United States have done this, right? They've done more fresher foods. Kids' attention spans went up. Kids' behavior got better. Their focus was better. So these are not things, again, like it sounds like a leap, right? But we need to remember as a country and as a Commonwealth, we've done this before. We've done these things. We've made these changes. They're not easy. They're not pretty, but they get done and they end up helping people. And investing in our farms and protecting farms that have been in families for 200 years is so important. And the last thing on this one, when I talked to that farmer, he had 3 children. And he said to me, this farm has been in my family for 200 years. I don't know if I'm going to leave it to my children because of how much stress I'm under with what's going on. And that broke my heart.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And that's irreversible, right? Not only is the land damaged for generations, like you said, but more and more of those stories are more and more common, and we're running out of time to take action to prevent, the catastrophes we're talking about here. So, love that. So number 6.
So access to good paying jobs and worker protections. We, the rural people, deserve livable wage jobs and protections in the workplace. Workers are the foundation of our rural communities, and we must provide them with the protections they deserve. We know a strong workforce means a strong middle class. So something that is very important to me, like my father was a laborer. He installed garage doors for a living, but it was a good job. And he gave my brother and I and my mother a great life on that job. That isn't happening anymore. Those type of jobs are dwindling. We're seeing companies close down. We have a textile company that just closed down, and that has been in this area for over 100 years. I think it's probably over 150 years. And I don't know how much more communities can take when you see all these jobs just leaving the area, right? If we need to work to bring in good paying living wage jobs so people can have a good life, can have the tools they need to be successful. And to do that, again, living wage jobs, I think, is a necessity. I mean, in Pennsylvania, tipped workers aren't even covered under the minimum wage. So they're making under $3 an hour. Your tip in Pennsylvania is their salary. And again, who are they? They are minorities and women typically. I believe in the 27th district, it typically is women. And it's unacceptable. They deserve better. People, you always see that graph, right? When the wages are stagnant over the last 40 years and that, production has been increasing by the workforce, right, but they're not getting paid to match that, which they had been up to that point. And people don't understand. That's when things started to go awry, right? There was a point when the government and the people were working together. They had a relationship that was working, and it just got torn apart. And now we are in this unsustainable system. And if we don't invest back into the people, I don't know how much more it is sustainable, right? I think that's for many of us that consider ourselves progressives. That's the issue. We're looking down at this and saying, how much more can you take? How much more can this go on? How much more can we push our workers and not give them the tools and the wages that they need and the health insurance that they need to provide for their families, to help invest in our children so we can build the middle class up? And I think we've all seen a COVID in many states. They are not getting the PPE to our healthcare workers. My mother is a healthcare worker. She has to use her mask for 8 days, and that's unacceptable. And these issues have been going on before COVID, but I think COVID again has highlighted that when a lot of this stuff happened, I watched the Senate hearings when a bunch of Democrats would put up bills to get them PPE, to get them hazard pay amendments, and they were always voted down. Yeah. And I think we'd be probably a lot further open in reopening in Pennsylvania if we had those amendments and we had gotten our frontline workers and essential workers the tools that they needed from the beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And again, this Rural Bill of Rights is applicable anywhere in the country. It's also applicable, in cities and urban areas, but, we're focusing on rural because, they're left behind in a lot of ways here. But some of these are universal in nature,
Well, yeah, I mean, if not to get too national, but if the defense fund, if that act was put into production and we had the masks and stuff made, a lot of this would have been taken care of already.
Yeah. But then the Pentagon wouldn't have gotten their new fancy uniforms or whatever they.
Exactly. All that. I mean, and again, gosh, national politics just drive me berserko when you find out where all that money is going, and it just like when you try to explain that to people, sometimes I'm like, you went to the corporations. That's who got that bailout.
Very much.
So number 7 is the infrastructure investment. So we, the rural people, take pride in our communities. The gas tax was meant to fix our roads and bridges, yet our communities are still riddled with potholes. The infrastructure we were promised have not materialized. We cannot wait for infrastructure investment any longer. So the one thing about rural people, and the one reason that the MAGA framing and stuff like that, I knew these people were going to suck it up because they have a lot of pride. They have this idea of what was in their mind of how great the past, of how thriving their communities were generations ago. And they want that back. And when we see our communities breaking down, when we see a lot of the coal communities, specifically like Shamokin and Cole Township, and you go there and it's just, it's almost like being in a claymation movie where everything's gray, right? And it kind of weighs on you mentally. And if we revitalized these communities, if we invested in them, if we did some infrastructure projects to revitalize them, and people could see what they feel in their heart for their rural community, it would do amazing things for people's mental health. And mental health issues is something we don't talk about enough. And a lot of these rights could help that, right? Too. A lot of it could help mental health issues. It seems like it shouldn't, but for a lot of people it would. And again, the gas tax, we are number 1 in the entire country for that. It is, they repealed a 12-cent flat capped rate, and now we're paying almost 80 cents to the dollar. So for every 10 gallons of gas, you now in Pennsylvania are paying $8 in tax. That is a lot of money when you're filling up a gas tank. And for a working person, that's a dent in your wallet. And so when they passed that in 2013, most of the people were like, yeah, we need infrastructure investment. I get it. We don't want this to happen, but go ahead, pass the tax. But now we're seeing this tax keep going and going and going up, and the oil and gas industry is raking in the money, but we're not seeing where's our potholes being fixed. We have one project that they're working on, a bypass. That's it. The other things, because of COVID and stuff, PennDOT had to change stuff. We had issues with where the funding was actually going from that tax, and we found out almost over $4 billion was not actually even going into infrastructure projects. It was going into police programs. So don't even get me started on that with all the stuff going on. I think many of the progressives are a little bit like, that seems weird, right? So it just, this is the stuff that makes people concerned about government and why they're a little untrusting of government, because you pay your tax, you pay this gas tax, and it's not going where you were told it was going.
Right.
And infrastructure, again, what can you put under that? Broadband, right? Broadband can be under an infrastructure program. Public transportation can be an infrastructure program. So again, as you can see how they can build off of each other too. So
Absolutely.
An infrastructure investment doesn't just mean roads and stuff. It can be the stuff driving on the roads. It can be trains. It can be broadband. It can be electricity. It can be that type of stuff. And we have to remember, Eisenhower did a huge infrastructure program when he was president, and the government made money, and we created millions of jobs. And so, again, infrastructure investments, the government can do it. They can do it successfully. We need to get the right people in office that want to actually make it happen.
Right on. And you framed it around the MAGA thinking, right? So there's, whenever that great again thing was, right, let's strip out the identity stuff of it, right? And then, if it's Eisenhower, you said it's, this goes a long way, infrastructure on mental health, and you're so right, but it's also collective, like it's restorative of community pride, right? And yeah, exactly what you said. They're all interconnected, right?
I mean, I'm going to be honest. If you're running, as a congressional candidate too, this can be a great way to talk to a Trump person and have a respectful conversation. Say, hey, this stuff still isn't getting done, right? Yeah. This is a good icebreaker on that. So the Rural Bill of Rights number 8 is support of local businesses. We, the rural people, believe we must invest in local businesses to bring jobs back and rebuild our communities. We want a fair playing field so that our local businesses can grow and prosper. Giving local businesses the tools to be successful builds prosperous communities. So I think for me running, people will ask me, what kind of Democrat are you, right? And I say, I am a working families and small business Democrat. Investing in our small businesses, making sure that they can compete on a level free market playing field is important, because they're not. Like in Pennsylvania, when you have 74% of corporations not paying their income tax, but our small businesses are, how can they ever grow and build if they're not on a level playing field? And how can you grow and build when you're not getting the tools and things you need, even during COVID? There's been a number of amendments that would have helped small businesses in COVID that aren't getting through. So it's just, and especially in rural, our communities, the foundation of our community is our small business, our local businesses. That's our employers. That's the backbone of our communities. Yeah. If they go down, it's done, right? That's why they need investment. That's why they need a security system. That's why because again, if it affects jobs, right? It goes back to another right. Like if you invest in your community, you invest in your small businesses, maybe more small businesses come into the area. It creates more jobs. And then create more jobs. You can fund more into the community, which is going to give more programs for our children. So the support of local businesses, I think, is something that's very important. And I think it's something that more Democrats need to, I think, talk about and tackle it head on. And yeah, I said during COVID when it happened and they opened stuff back up, I said, our small businesses shut down for us. Now it's time to step up for them. Put your mask on, but keep shopping, go to them, visit them, help them, because they shut their doors down to save your life. And now we need to go and save theirs. Yeah,
well said. Yeah. And tip heavily as well, right?
Yes, exactly.
The one thing about this, the term small business has been used cynically and kind of in an Orwellian way in some policies previously, right? So, defining what is a local business, right? Especially in farming, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's baked into what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it also making the distinction between what corporations I'm talking about, because some, smaller businesses can incorporate, and some of them say, well, I'm paying that tax. And I'm like, right. Sorry, I mean Walmart, I mean Target, I mean Amazon. That's who I'm talking about. That's not paying in Pennsylvania.
Right. Yep. Awesome. Well, I'm loving these. Number 9.
So access to clean air, water, and land. The PA Constitution, Article 1, Section 27. The people have a right to clean air, pure water, and the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. Pennsylvania's public natural resources are the common property of all the people, including generations yet to come. As trustee of these resources, the Commonwealth shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all the people. So this is like one of my favorite constitutional rights for the PA Constitution. Pennsylvania is actually one of the only states that has this in their constitution. And my favorite part is for generations yet to come. So it's saying in this constitution, you need to protect your clean air, your air, water, and land so that your children have it for the future. And in Pennsylvania, that is not happening. They are changing the definition of recycling so that they can burn single-use plastic, so they can build more fracking cracker shell facilities. And then they changed the definition of pollution in Pennsylvania so they can dump fracking water into our rivers. And again, what happened to my family? That, you know, an unlined coal ash pit seeped into the groundwater. Uncle got into their well. My grandfather got cancer. My uncle got colon cancer. Didn't have health insurance, great health insurance, fell through the cracks of the system. Colitis turned into cancer, and he died in his 50s for drinking water in the state of Pennsylvania. And this right could, you know, access to clean underwater. Michigan could use this. You know, those candidates running in Michigan use this to say to them, no working person, citizen, no person in this country or the Commonwealth should ever worry that the water that they're drinking is going to make them sick. And we have this going on in our schools, going back to investment in public education. Lead in schools in Pennsylvania is being found all over. And we could do an infrastructure investment there, revitalize these pipes, fix them, renew them so that our schools, they're not lead pipes. And again, that will give us clean water. So you can see how a lot of these build off each other and give you a chance to explain things and really hit your issues. And as a mother, as an environmentalist, as an environmental science major, this one is extremely important to me because protecting our land and making sure it's there for generations is something that's extremely important to me. I want my kid to enjoy these public parks. And, you know, on a side note, the Republican Party in Pennsylvania wants to put up a bill to tax you to get into state parks. And I just find, you know, this says it's the people's, and if you're already paying the tax to get into that park, you shouldn't have to pay a tax again to literally enter it, especially when a lot of people in rural use these parks as their destination for a vacation because they can't afford much more. So this one, again, is just, it's important to me personally because what happened to my family is important to me as my career, and it's important to me as a mother to that our air, water, and land are protected. And one other quick thing on this, Pennsylvania is in the top 3 worst for air quality and water quality. So that is the result of our legislature, the bills they are passing. So they are directly infringing, and I love using that term because that side always likes to talk about rights. Mm-hmm. They have been infringing on your rights for years.
Yeah. This one's a bit defensive, right? Like this is protecting, right? It's not not building something, it's protecting something. I like what you said about the generations too. That's the indigenous thing of 7 generations, right? It's, you know, it's baked into this as well. I love it. So number 10.
So number 10 is upholding of the PA and U.S. constitutions. We, the rural people, have our rights guaranteed to us by the PA and U.S. constitutions. Our 3 branches of government, our checks and balance system, protecting our individual liberties, and future legislation should have never infringe on our constitutional rights. So the one thing, and I know Kristen's watching right now, my campaign manager is very, very, very good at bringing up to me. If I say something, she'll be like, I don't know if it passed the courts. And it's something that I wasn't as cognizant of until we started doing this. But it's something I think more legislators should be reminded of, right? We have 3 branches of government. We need to understand that we have checks and balances. We need to understand how to utilize them successfully and what a legislative branch can and cannot do. And in Pennsylvania, you see this going on when they're trying to take power from the executive branch with all these bills they're putting up. They're trying to take power away from the judicial branch by putting up another gerrymandering bill, which is going to gerrymander our districts so much that the people are really not going to be picking them anymore. And that's breaking down the basic fundamental principle of our Constitution, that we have 3 branches, we have checks and balances. It goes back to number 9 is a part of our PA Constitution. I want the government to start protecting everybody equally, equitably, and that's what I want to see in Pennsylvania. So that's why this is in here. So I have a number of people be like, why is this one important? Why did you throw this in here? Because understanding what your rights are and understanding that they need to be making sure that they go for everybody in the state and in nationally is super important. And as us as candidates, we need to advocate for everybody and make sure that our legislation is upholding that.
Right on. Yeah, and who would argue that, right? While I'm here, obviously Michelle Siegel for PA Senate. You can go read all those 10, share them, right? Use them as a template in your district, but go to her website and contribute, right? Like I said at the top, Michelle's a grassroots candidate, no corporate PAC money. She's never going to take corporate PAC money. You can hear the authenticity when she speaks of these issues, right? So she needs our money, right? So please make a donation. I'm sure you have mechanisms on here to volunteer, right? So people can, make phone banking shifts and send texts and so forth. So, go to Michelle Siegel for PASenate.com, make a donation, sign up and volunteer. Grassroots candidates like Michelle need all the help they can get from us, the people, right? And clearly that's who she's fighting for. So please go support her. Any other ways that folks can help? Do you have any chance of a debate with the incumbent?
So right now we have he's agreed to candidate forums, but we are pressuring still. We have two universities in my district, Susquehanna University and Bloomsburg University. The college Republicans and Democrats are both calling for a debate. So we're still working on that because he has recently said that I agreed to only 3 things and I didn't want to debate, and that's not even true. So it seems like we just want to do the candidate forums that our buddies behind the scenes run so that he feels in good company, apparently. But that's not democracy. You need to be, you voted for the bills. You should have to debate and defend your vote, right? That's what's missing here in this country. These incumbents that are gerrymander themselves in districts so they can sit there for their entire lives and pass bills that are never going to help anybody except their corporate and lobbying donors. Yeah. And to me, that's unacceptable, and it has to change. And we're working on it. We're gonna, we're giving it a little bit more time, and then we're gonna really make noise about it. We have some people that are gonna be running letter to the editors and stuff like that, and saying, no, we want to debate, not 5 questions at a forum that are pre-written and that everybody can write their partisan answer. I want to debate. I want a chance to say, why did you vote for this? Why did you vote to give a pay cut to our teachers when you vote to give yourself a raise every year? And when he did that pay cut, he went to the teachers and told them it was a shared sacrifice. Well, how about you have a shared sacrifice? Take a pay cut, help your community. The one thing that if I'm elected that I would do, everybody gets mad that politicians give themselves pay raises. They have to understand one thing, that raise also goes to like their secretary. It's other people in the office. I would never want to stop another, like a janitor or a hardworking person from getting a raise, right? Okay. So what I would like to do is take that money that would go to a raise, put it in a fund. And then, so 4 years, I think it's up to like $1,400. So after 4 years, there would probably be about, $5,000-$6,000. That would go right into the community, go into do a program for children, go into a revitalization program. That's what I would do with my raise. Give it right back to the people.
Amazing. And the thing I always encourage people, you can politely contact the incumbent and, insist on that debate as well, right? The more pressure he feels, the more, he realizes the seat's in jeopardy, and the more likely he is to, engage in a proper debate like Michelle's sort of demanding or requesting. So again, Michelle Siegel for PASenate.com. Go read the Bill of Rights, share it, the Rural Bill of Rights, share it, elsewhere, donate, volunteer. The election is November 3rd, right? So, we're kind of in a home stretch here. So, she needs your help. Anything else that we didn't hit on that you want to talk on? I know we focused heavily on that. Well, let me ask this. How, in a generally more red area, I would assume this is resonating really well, right? It's framed, there's the patriotism's in their Constitution, honoring that, investment in, in your communities. Is it being received well, sort of in a bipartisan way?
Yeah, I mean, I I mean, I've had conversations with my members of the like libertarian parties and stuff, and there's a lot of those in rural, right? A lot of even people that consider themselves Republicans, when you talk to them, they're like, well, actually, I think I go more libertarian. So,
Right.
for them, yes, it's going over. I think this is an opportunity to have a conversation and not so. I think people. It's tough because I don't want people to ever feel bad that they voted for somebody and stuff. Like people, they didn't have the choice before, but this is a way to have a conversation with somebody and say, hey, these things haven't been dealt with. It's time we start dealing with them. And a lot of the framing and the words work with people across the aisle. Rights, access, affordable. Like these are things that people, rural people, too many of them have GoFundMe's, and that's unacceptable. That's not how this should work. If you're paying for insurance, it should pay for your bills, or, and then too many people in rural don't have insurance because everybody is, has jobs that don't pay enough. And it just, a lot of this would take a lot of stress off of people. And I've even talked to Republican, business owners that said, I would be for a Medicare for all system because it'd be a lot nicer to not have to stress every year and shop around for a private insurance company and then deal with all that and then deal with the fiasco if they deny something. It's just this, rural people, I think, see things a little bit different. They tend populist. They know that their system is not working, and they just, they want the government to stay out of their civil liberties, but they want the government. They love their Social Security, love their Medicare. They want their government there for that kind of stuff. And that's the kind of government I would like to see at the legislative level in Pennsylvania.
Right on. Yeah. And there's nothing in there that's specifically a civil liberties issue. Like on an intersectional way, but not explicitly as you have them laid out. Right. Amazing. Yeah, I just think that's stellar. When you mentioned it last time we talked, I was eager to see it. And then I saw you put it out and I read it, and, you had a great launch party, and I just think it's amazing. I hope you win on November 3rd. Again, I'm going to say it, Michelle Siegel for PASenate.com. Please make a donation. Please sign up. You can make calls from anywhere in the country. She needs our help, even just a couple hours, send some texts, whatever, right? This is, all these sort of state races make a huge difference, right? And PA's legislature is kind of up for grabs. It's a bit close, right? So we can flip the state house this time around, right? So if I'm not mistaken, so this has an even bigger impact outside of Michelle's district. So please go support her. I thank you, Michelle, for taking the time to go through that. It was but twice the length of my normal interviews, but I think that was awesome. Well worth it. That's incredible. And I'm going to save it. So hopefully use it in the future. And I'll recommend
Thank
it to
you.
every candidate I talk to from here on out. I'm going to say, you got to check out Michelle's website because it's awesome.
Yeah, and if they want to talk more, please send them my way. We came up with this platform, but we want as many people. I mean, I just think wouldn't it be an awesome thing if this election, if all these progressives running and say, we deserve a rural bill. I just think it's an amazing idea here that we could all unite under.
So good. So good. And you could endorse candidates who endorse this,
yeah.
Right? And sort of get a rural rights stamp, right? Maybe we'll figure that out for next cycle. Awesome,
Okay.
Michelle. I appreciate you. Thanks for running. Thanks for putting this together. Godspeed, November 3rd. Let's get Michelle into office. And thanks for taking some time to chat with me. I will talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.